Have you ever felt that devastating stab when you see the woman who takes away your dream by talking intimately with another man, while you remain invisible as a ghost trapped between two worlds? Do you know that frustration that your soul looks when you end up being the comprehensive friend, the shoulder where she cries for the idiot with whom she is coming out? If you recognize this sensation as your own emotional biography, then what you are about to discover is not simply another method of the thousands you have tried without success. It is the brutal understanding of an ancestral code that only 3% of men know and apply with devastating mastery. This knowledge is so counterintuitive, so devastatingly effective, that it goes against each conditioning fiber that you received from childhood. Before continuing, leave your like below, because what I am to reveal to you absolutely challenges everything you thought about the female desire. Once you cross this invisible line, once you see the truth naked in front of your eyes, I warn you, there is no possible turning. We are going to discover the forbidden method that Machiavelli would have used to conquer not only kingdoms, but the most inaccessible hearts. Get ready for revelation that will shake the foundations of everything you thought about women, about yourself, and on that sleeping power that lies inside you waiting to be awakened. Listen with the millimeter precision of a cardiovascular surgeon, because you are about to cross the veil of a colossal lie that has kept entire generations of men trapped in the most devastating emotional mediocrity of all. There is an ancestral dance between bodies and minds, a silent game where most follow obsolete rules, while a few privileged know the secret movements that transform the simple attraction in uncontrollable obsession. I do not speak of cheap or deception techniques as the charlatans teach on the internet, but of the brutal understanding that everything, absolutely every advice, each strategy that taught you about conquering a woman's heart was a carefully constructed lie to keep you exactly where you are, in the emotional limbo of romantic invisibility. Do you know that feeling that devours your entrails when you see the woman you want intimately conversing with another, while you remain petrified in your impotence, paralyzed by simultaneous desire and terror? That frustration that corrodes your soul when you invariably end up being the kind friend whom she seeks to let off steam on the emotionally unavailable idiot with whom she goes out, while pretending to understand. Inside you will tend from silent rage, feeling how every word of yours is a dagger that nails deeper into your hopes. That humiliation of being eternally transparent for women who awaken your interest, as a ghost condemned to observe from the shadows while others live the life you secretly want. All that you feel, all that anguish that accompanies you on infinite nights of loneliness, ends today. Because what I am about to reveal is not a common method. It is the secret code that approximately 3% of men dominates with results that challenge all logic. It is extremely rare to find who dominates these principles, because they go against all the social conditioning that you have received as a systematic brainwashing since you were a child. The entire society, the romantic films, even your mother with their best intentions, conspired without knowing it to teach you the wrong way, to program you for emotional failure, to become an emotional consumer instead of a creator of desire. Let's be brutally honest. You have already tried everything. You bought expensive colonies thinking that the aroma would give you a supernatural confidence. You tried to impress with expensive gifts, believing that money buys genuine affection. You were the super attack that responds immediately, thinking that constant availability was synonymous with romantic interest. You tried to be the perfect gentleman, opening doors, paying dinners, being the most considerate of all. You tried to be the funny with perfectly calculated jokes, the deep intellectual impressing with your knowledge, the athlete, the musician, the artist, changing personalities such as a desperate chameleon looking for the magical formula that would finally give you access to the female heart. And where did that titanic effort take you? Straight to the friend zone, that limbo where good intentions rot and become absolute romantic invisibility. That prison where you are good enough to listen to your problems, but not exciting enough to be a ROM option real antique. The brutal truth that nobody whispers to you because it is painful is this: you were meticulously programmed to fail since you were born. The entire system conspired to become an emotional provider, a validator of female self-esteem in everything except the only thing that really matters, a desirable man. They taught you to be good when you had to learn to be irresistible, to give when you should learn to receive, to pursue when you had to learn to attract. They scheduled to be Plan B when you were born to be the unique option. They told you since childhood, be a gentle, educated, respectful. Do not attack these fundamental values. They are essential to be a decent human. But these alone qualities, isolated from the most primitive and powerful elements of attraction, do not create that magnetic attraction that makes a woman not get rid of her mind, even if she tries desperately. Do you know what really creates that attraction that transcends all logic? The tension that cuts the air like a sharp razor. The mystery that keeps her awake, spinning in her bed, thinking about you, analyzing each word, every gesture. A little calculated emotional danger that activates the primitive instincts programmed from the caverns, when survival depended on choosing the partner capable of protecting and perpetuating the strongest genes. Think of this reality that will exploit your head and change your perspective on women forever. Why is that guy who is even more handsome than you, nor does it have more money, nor is it smarter, that objectively should not have any advantage, manages to conquer them while you observe from the stands as a mere spectator of your own life? Because he has unwavering confidence, a security that makes women gravitate around them as planets to the sun, unable to resist their gravitational field. Understand something fundamental that you have not yet understood. Authentic seduction never occurs in the sure kingdom of rational logic. It does not develop in the predictable territory of rational conversations. It happens in pure, wild, primitive instinct, in its deepest subconscious, in the ancestral layers of the reptilian brain, where decisions are made in milliseconds, before the conscious mind realizes that something transformative is happening. Do you really think women consciously choose who falls in love? Do you think they feel with a list of pros and cons as if they were buying a car? Of course not. That is a romantic Hollywood fantasy. The reality is infinitely more primitive and powerful. It is his ancestral brain who decides, that primitive part of millions of years of relentless evolution, when the survival depended on choosing the dominant male, the undisputed alpha, the supreme protector that guaranteed not only survival, but also prosperity and security for her and her offspring. That ancient brain, that biological computer perfected by natural selection, does not care about beautiful flowers or faces romanticized in the films. It is not moved by the sweet gestures of the cheap novels. He worries exclusively about unequivocal signs of real value, authentic social domain, and genuine capacity for protection and leadership, instinctively looking for the true alpha, who does not need to demonstrate that it is because it simply radiates it from each pore, every movement, every word, every silence calculated. The man who walks around the world as if he were his property, who speaks as if his words were decrees, who looks into his eyes without blinking because he has nothing to hide or demonstrate. Before you think I am telling you to become an insensitive cavernicola or a sociopath without emotions, calm down. It is not about being rude, disrespectful, or primitive negatively. It is something infinitely more sophisticated, elegant, and powerful. Understand the ancestral dance between bodies and minds that occurs in each successful seductive interaction. It is about activating with millimetric precision the correct triggers at the exact time, touching with mastery those emotional strings that resonate at specific frequencies that most men do not even know that they exist in the spectrum of human attraction. It's like learning to play an extremely complex musical instrument. It requires knowledge, practice, sensitivity, and deep understanding of the laws that govern the music of desire. I spent a complete decade studying this with scientific obsession, with the dedication of a researcher, testing it on the real battlefield of human interactions. I analyzed each variable, every nuance, every microscopic detail. I studied both natural success and those who systematically failed. I observed patterns, I looked for correlations. I developed theories and put them up until you refine it to perfection. What I discovered goes against everything that the supposed experts in relationships that swarm selling sweet but ineffective advice. Tips designed to make you feel good, but that keep you exactly where you are. Safe, predictable, harmless, and invisible to the women you really want. Do you want to know the dirty secret? The forbidden secret that no guru will tell you because it would destroy their full business model. Women do not want an always available man. They do not want the one who is there every time they chask their fingers as a trained puppy waiting for a caress. They don't want the one who puts them on a pedestal as untouchable goddesses. They do not want to treat them as fragile porcelain dolls. They want a man who has real, abundant options. A man who doesn't need them to feel complete. A man so deeply focused on his purpose that his presence is an extraordinary gift, not a desperate plea. They want the man who could have any woman, but choose them, not out of necessity, but for genuine desire. It is paradoxical to the core. The less you need it emotionally, the more it will wish you with an intensity that will surprise her. Authentic seduction never begins with a simple "hello, Cortez," which vanishes like a stone falling into the lake without leaving waves. It begins with a deliberate and calculated rupture, an intentional fracture in the expected, an electric spark in the silence that awakens something that has been asleep for years, something primitive that she did not know that it existed within itself. Forget forever. Delete completely from your memory all about traditional presentations. Forget that robotic "how are you" that he dies when pronouncing, and that immediately classifies it as another interaction of the infinite pile of generic men who approach him every day with the same desperate and predictable energy. The first movement is never about being pleasant or harmless as a helpless puppy. It is something infinitely more powerful: to take absolute and indisputable control of the emotional rhythm from the first second. Establish crystalline clarity that you are not one more of the infinite flock of predictable men. Imagine approaching the confidence of a king in his kingdom, but instead of being predictable like all the lambs of the flock, you tell him something completely unexpected. You have a face of someone who deeply hates surface conversations, but who secretly loves controlled chaos and emotional storms. Maybe there is something in your eyes that tells me that you know how uncomfortable. At that exact moment, something irreversibly changes in its facial expression. Its micro-expression is completely transformed. He pauses an emotional eternity. It flashes how to emphasize its internal system. His brain is activated as a high-performance engine that received premium octane fuel after years working with common gasoline. Why does this magic happen? Because you have brutally interrupted your automatic response pattern. This mental filter, scheduled for years to automatically rule out the generic men who approach with the same desperate energy and predictable lines. At that moment, you are no longer one of them. You have completely differentiated yourself from background noise. You have managed to feel genuine, real intrigue. And curiosity is the most powerful entry drug towards uncontrollable desire. It is the first dominoes that falls into a chain reaction, which can take it from total indifference to complete obsession. This is where the entire solid foundation of attraction begins to harden until it becomes unwavering, something extraordinarily weird in the modern world, full of pleading and needy men. True trust is not what you say with beautiful words or phrases rehearsed. It is what you do not need to say because your presence shouts at a deafening silence. She perceives everything before you open her mouth. Read your essence as an open book, as a detailed map of your soul. Microscopically observe how you feel, if you take up space with natural authority or shrink trying not to bother. Analyze how long you keep visual contact without blinking, without apologizing for existing. Evaluate whether your presence fills the room with natural magnetism or mendiga space as an emotional orphan looking for approval desperately. Authentic trust is silent as an ancient cathedral. Walk without advertising. He speaks slowly as if he had all the time in the world, and the conversation was a gift he is giving. It moves with absolute certainty in each gesture, in each step, in each calculated movement, and, above all, it does not fear the loss, because it knows deeply that its value as a man does not depend on the external approval of any woman, however beautiful it is. This is the fundamental attitude that you need to embody until it becomes part of your emotional DNA. I do not need you to be happy, but I am not afraid of you either. You are welcome to accompany me on my trip, but I will not change my course to please you. This is the psychological position that turns all the dynamics of head power, which completely invests the rules of the game. Once you learn and internalize it, she begins to qualify before you, to demonstrate her value, instead of having to beg and demonstrate your worth before her like everyone else. Let me make it completely visual so that you understand it in all its magnitude. Think of the last time you entered a luxury car showroom. There were two types of vendors. The first harassed you since you set a foot in the place. He hit you like a desperate shadow. I kept asking you, do you like it? Do you want to try it? What do you think? Can I do something to convince you? Radiated such a palpable despair that you could smell it. Instantly, you had the complete psychological advantage because your need dramatically decreased its value to your eyes. Now imagine another completely different seller. He greets you calmly professional. The car shows you with elegance and knowledge. Answer your questions with authority. Then he strategically retires silently. He does not chase you. He does not plead. It simply exists in his own confidence. He knows perfectly what he is offering. He knows that you will feel it if it is correct for you. He knows that the product speaks for himself. Suddenly, the dynamic is completely invested. You feel the need to demonstrate that you are worthy of the deal, that you can afford that quality level. You begin to ask anxious questions, to justify your interest, to demonstrate your economic solvency. The table turned completely, and now he has all the power. It is exactly the same dynamic in seduction, but multiplied by 1,000. When you authentically demonstrate that your life is complete, rich in purpose, full of genuine joy, anchored in interior strength, abundant in real options without it, you automatically turn yourself into the prize. Not in the desperate hunter, not in the emotional beggar who prays for crumbs of attention. This is the most counterintuitive of all the elements of the system. The seductive supreme art of taking a step back right at the maximum emotional connection, when everything is flowing perfectly, when you feel that you could stay there forever. Not because you do not care about what happens, but because you understand one of the most devastating and powerful truths about female desire. Nostalgia creates uncontrollable obsession. The vacuum generates desperate longing that keeps her awake at night, spinning in her bed, thinking about you. You know perfectly that magical moment when the conversation flows effortlessly as a crystalline river, when the smiles arise naturally as flowers in spring, when she is completely present with you, absorbed in your presence, hanging from each word as if you were the oracle of Delphi revealing the secrets of the universe. When your body language opens completely, when you lean towards you, when your eyes shine with genuine interest. That is not the time to move forward and squeeze until the last drop of that magical connection as an emotional vampire. That is not the time to desperately cling to that feeling as if it were the last thing you will experience in your life. That is precisely the time to leave, to strategically disappear as an elegant ghost, just when everything feels more alive, more electric, more loaded with infinite possibilities. Yes, exactly as you are listening. And I know that it sounds completely crazy from the perspective of traditional romantic logic. At the highest point of emotional tension, just when you feel more electric and loaded with promises, you simply say absolute calm and total control. I would love to stay longer because I am really enjoying this conversation, but I have important commitments to attend. Let's continue this at another time. And you leave without looking back as Lot's wife, without hesitation for a second, without staying to see her reaction, as a ghost that leaves her indelible brand. Actually, what happens later in your mind is not logical or rational. It is completely chemical, primitive, uncontrollable. His brain releases dopamine in industrial quantities, and then you disappear as smoke in the wind. You just became a series episode that ends at the most exciting moment, in a song that is cut right in the best part, in a book that closes exactly when the plot becomes more interesting and addictive. Think in the last truly addictive series you saw. I did not explain everything immediately. It did not solve all the plots in the first episode. I left you with voracious hunger for more information, development, resolution. I kept you in a constant state of delicious tension. That is exactly what you should become. Not in the 3-hour film that is crawling until everyone loses interest and starts to check their phones, but in the tense episode full of tension that leaves it breathless and telling the days until next season. This means that you do not answer at the exact moment she sends a message, as if you were stuck to the phone waiting for her communication. Do not answer each call as if you were waiting next to the device 24 hours a day. You live your life fully. You move around your world as a man in an important mission, a man who has abundant options, clear purpose, self, gravity, objectives that transcend any individual woman. Because when she notices your absence, when she realizes that you are not available immediately, her emotional radar is activated in a way that she cannot consciously control. Your primitive mind begins to ask yourself obsessively, where is it? Who is it with? Why hasn't you answered? Will it be with another woman? Will I have done something wrong? Did you lose interest? And at that time of delicious uncertainty, he is not only thinking about you rationally, he is feeling you emotionally with each fiber of his being. Now you are in your mind doing an infinite loop, reproducing as a scratched album. Your subconscious is reproducing your voice, obsessively rereading your last message as if it were a secret code that needs to decipher to find clues about your true intentions. This is the crucial change, the exact moment where the dynamic is completely invested when she begins to persecute you, not by conscious strategy, but by without no emotional tension, for desire for resolution, out of primitive need to complete the pattern you left deliberately incomplete. That is what most men never understand in all their magnitude. They stay too long as guests who don't know when to leave. They respond too fast, eliminating all mystery. They meticulously eliminate all emotional tension and, in doing so, they kill desire in their crib before they have the opportunity to grow and transform into something uncontrollable. Take the initiative and climb the interaction when necessary. Without a doubt paralyzing, that makes you a salt statue. This is the definitive moment of truth, where most men fail miserably, where all previous pillars built with such care are collapsed as a castle of cards. If you do not have the primitive value, the ancestral courage to act with absolute decision when the precise moment comes as a window that opens for seconds, everything will have been in vain. You created the magnetic attraction she can feel in her skin. You built the emotional tension that cuts the air as static electricity. You played the detachment game with virtuous mastery. Now you need to act with the relentless determination of a general conquering enemy territory. Undoubtedly, without hesitation, without asking permission to exist. And this is where fear appears in all its disgusting ugliness. The paralyzing fear of rejection. The fear of ruining everything built with such care and precision. The fear of being seen as invasive, inappropriate, or desperate. But let me whisper in a secret that will transform your perspective for all eternity. Women desperately want you to take the initiative with masculine confidence. They secretly fantasize with the man who knows exactly what he wants and is not afraid to go for it without apologizing for his masculinity, without apologizing for being a man. They dream of someone to take them by the hand with natural authority and guide them to unexplored territories of sensation and emotion. Hesitation, doubt, indecision kills more romantic opportunities than rejection itself. When you feel in your bones that the moment is correct, when each signal points towards the advance, it acts without asking permission, without asking if you can like an insecure child. Read your body signs with the precision of a radar, and advance with the confidence of someone who perfectly understands the silent language of female desire. It could be to take your hand while walking and feel if you resist or give yourself to your leadership. It could be to bring it closer during an intimate conversation and observe if your body leans towards you or moves away. That kiss could be at the perfect moment when silence speaks stronger than 1,000 beautiful words, when the tension is so thick that it can be cut with a knife. The audacity, calculated, measured, intelligent, is what definitely separates the real men of the childess who play to be men. It is what makes you mention your friends the next day with a smile that you can't erase. It is what creates shocking memories that you cannot forget even if you want. Now I know exactly what you should be thinking, and we will clarify it once before your mind begins to sabotage you with moral doubts. This is not manipulation in the toxic and destructive sense of the word. It is not being a heart without a soul. True manipulation is when you lie deliberately, you cheat consciously, or do something directly against your will. What I am teaching you is the opposite. It is the antithesis of manipulation. It is about being completely authentic in your natural masculinity, of understanding what really creates attraction in the real world. Think with me with total honesty. When a woman puts on makeup carefully, he chooses an outfit that enhances her figure, uses a special perfume that knows that he attracts. Is he being manipulative? Of course not. It is presenting itself in the best possible way, using natural tools to become more attractive. That is exactly what you are doing, using natural psychological tools to arouse genuine attraction. It is not about deceiving anyone or creating a completely false personality. It is about being the best version of yourself, the most authentic and powerful, the version that was always there, but that society taught you to repress. And let me tell you something that few men know, and that feminized society tries to hide you. Women want to be seduced. They dream of that, read books about that, watch movies about that. They fantasize about that in private. But they want to be seduced by a real, authentic, powerful man, not by an insecure guy who apologizes for existing. not by a man who is afraid of his own male shadow. They want to feel that chill in the stomach that they have not felt in years, that delicious tension in the air that makes them feel alive, that game of looks that says more than 1,000 empty conversations about the climate. And when you master the secret code that I am revealing to you, when you internalize it until it becomes part of your nature, you become that man. You become the type that cannot be taken out of the head, the mystery that keeps them awake thinking, the obsession that they cannot control. You have come here, which means that you are not like most men who make up with emotional crumbs while their lives are drained between the fingers. You have looked in the mirror without blinking. You have felt the scalpel of truth to open your chest and expose a heart that beats with primitive force, a heart that always knew you were destined for more. This ancestral knowledge that now circulates through your veins as liquid fire is a sacred maze where few dare to enter. Most remain at the entrance, memorizing theories, collecting useless maps, paralyzed by a fear that whispers lies to the ear. But you are not like them. You feel the call from the very center of the labyrinth, where the beast of your authentic male power impatient roars. Who does not cross this threshold now, who does not abandon the security of the known, who allows fear to keep him chained to mediocrity, will pay the most devastating price. He will see his life to pass as a shadow while other men, those who dared, conquer the territories that he only allowed to contemplate from afar. There is no more corrosive pain than the silent regret that accompanies you to the grave. The wall that imprisoned your true nature is already fractured, cracked by every word that has penetrated your conscience. The cracks extend as cobwebs of possibility. Only one is missing, one, so that the whole system that kept you captive collapses. And that blow will not come from me, but from you, of your irrevocable decision. Will you be the man who commands without pronouncing a word, who conquers withdrawing, who attracts without pursuing? Or will you continue to be the ghost that begs attention, the echo of what you could be? Iron is red alive. Forge it now or contemplate how it cools forever. If you have decided to wake up, if you have chosen to break the chains and claim your sleeping power, leave your warrior brand in the comments. I command without saying anything. And while others continue to discuss theories, you will be conquering kingdoms that they can't even imagine.